Hey, what's going on, Guardians? My name is the Black Link, and we are just a few days away from the release of Destiny 2 Beyond Light. And of course, with it being a Thursday, we have the last issue of This Week at Bungie, of course, the Bungie Weekly blog, before the expansion comes out. Today is November 5th, 2020, and we've got a couple of things to clear up before that big expansion drops. But, as is usually the case either immediately after or immediately before a major patch release, there's really not too much brand new information to cover in this week's swap, so we'll get through it in no time. In the past couple of weeks, we've been talking an awful lot about some of the big Sandbox changes that are going to be coming to the game. Well, in this week's swab, we learn a bit about how quests and exotic kiosks, as they kind of are going to be known, are going to be coming to the game with Beyond Light. In a section titled Archives, this is what Bungie had to say. Beginning November 10th, 2 new kiosks will be available in the tower. First up, the quest archive will be found next to the postmaster. Our hope is that this removes some of the confusion when trying to track down the odd quests that you previously discarded. Additionally, this will be the place for any veteran players to pick up the new light quest on November 10th, if they have a strong desire to experience new player tutorials and the reintroduction to the Cosmodrome. Next up, the Monument to Lost Light's exotic archive will be found by the Vault. Here, players may acquire various exotics and legendary Pinnacle and Pursuit weapons that were once available through now retired quests. As many of these exotics were tied to lengthy quests or difficult objectives, we wanted to make sure their prices reflected those previous efforts. Players will need an amount of Glimmer, destination materials, masterworking materials, and an exotic cipher or ascendant shard in order to purchase the exotic or legendary which they desire. We're also introducing a currency, Spoils of Conquest, which can only be acquired when completing raids. This currency will be required for exotics previously tied to vaulted raids. So there we go. Big news there. We're basically going to be getting some new kiosks in the tower. One to pick up old quests for old story missions and stuff like that, I guess, rather than having it over at Amanda Holiday. And a brand new kiosk for you to pick up quest exotics and even Pinnacle weapons that were offered in previous seasons. I really didn't see the whole Pinnacle weapon thing coming. I thought that Bungie was going to leave stuff like Mountaintop and Recluse and Breakneck. If you didn't pick up those quests, back in the day when they were available, I thought they were just going to leave those off in the distance. So it's really interesting that they're going to be offering those to players as well for this new currency system. Very interesting stuff. Very happy they're doing that. And considering what you had to do to get stuff like Luna's Howl, Not Forgotten, we'll see if all of that is in there as well. I hope that the material cost is high. Really high. Of course, for people who already have this stuff, you're probably still going to have access to those things in your personal collection. This is just for people who never completed those quests. And I think ultimately that's a pretty interesting idea from Bungie. Definitely a good thing. They finish this up by saying, in the past, exotic ciphers were very limited in nature. While you can expect one to be available as part of the season pass, Xur will also now offer a quest to earn one exotic cipher on a weekly cadence. Great. More reasons to actually visit the Agent of the Nine. Now, let's move on to some more traditional patch notes. First up, we've got some Crucible changes. Trials of Osiris. The Trials of Osiris power level requirement is being increased to 1210, and they've added adept weapons and weapon mods to flawless chest rewards. We covered all of that in previous weeks. Next up, changes to maps. They've added physics blockers to some out-of-bounds areas on Altar of Flame. They've also added these blockers to some out-of-bound areas on Exodus Blue, and the same thing can be said for the Cauldron. So hopefully you won't be fighting any more people on top of or outside of the map. Next up, changes to player identity. Login screens will now have a dark background. Finally, back like it was in D1, where you're not getting this blinding light whenever you start up the game. Next, they've updated the full screen menus to have a dark background style, basically meaning we have Destiny 2 dark mode for the menus. Very excited for that too. Player waypoints will now display season rank and HUD waypoints, and they've added a toggle functionality to the character screen, allowing the player to make a choice between light and dark subclasses. And these character screen visuals will update depending on the player choice between light and dark. Really interesting stuff there. Bungie is definitely going all in on the kind of fantasy mythology of choosing the light versus the dark here. Really neat. We're moving on to some other important things. They fixed a bug with Divinity that prevented certain weapons like the Ariana's Vow from getting critical hit damage with it, and the Hunter's Dodge has been nerfed. This was kind of buried within the patch notes that they put out today. But they've increased the Hunter's Dodge cooldown by a few seconds. So with tier 4 stats, your old cooldown would be 22 seconds, now it's 26 seconds. Which in a point break situation in Crucible can be an entire lifetime. That extra 4 seconds can really count. But there was a pretty great change for anti-champion mods. Anti-barrier rounds will now penetrate taken phalanx shields. Very happy about that. And all anti-champion mods have been shifted to armor rather than taking a weapon mod slot. Again, this is a huge change that was kind of buried at the end of the patch notes here. Finally, Orbs of Light have now been properly changed to Orbs of Power, as they can now be consumed by both light and dark subclasses. So there we go, that's a quick sneak peek at some patch notes for the changes we'll be getting with Beyond Light. The full patch notes will be released on Tuesday around launch time. Stay tuned. Moving on from there, starting on November 9th, Bungie is going to have some new collectibles and gifts available at the Bungie store, which will also have some in-game rewards tied to them, the emblems and whatnot. These in-game emblems will come alongside things you purchase in the store like the Destiny 2 Beyond Light soundtrack. But some of them will only be available for a very limited time. First up, we've got Cosmic Alignment, which will be available from November 9th all the way to December 4th, 2020. Between Stars, which is going to be available starting November 9th and going until February 9th, 2021. And finally, Shattered Harmony, which is going to be available November 9th with the purchase of the Destiny 2 Beyond Light original soundtrack. So if any of those emblems look good to you, make sure you're keeping an eye on the Bungie store. But alright, beyond that, the last thing we have to talk about is a bit of technical information about Destiny Update 3.0.0.1, which is going to be coming alongside Destiny 2 Beyond Light. First off, next Monday, maintenance for Update 3.0.0.1 is going to begin. And with that, D2 is going to be going offline for 14 hours of maintenance. They say that maintenance is going to be starting at about 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, with players being removed from in-game world spaces at 4 p.m. Pacific time. That maintenance will conclude the following day, November 10th at 12 p.m. Pacific time, when Beyond Light officially releases. And as the opposite side of that, of course, the Beyond Light Preload is going to be going live as well, with PlayStation owners getting access to the Preload on November 8th after 8 p.m. Pacific time. And in order to do this, you'll just need to go to the Destiny 2 application and check for an update. Then your preload should be able to start. If you're a PlayStation Plus member, you'll be able to start your preload on November 7th after 8 p.m. Pacific time. For Xbox, the preload will be available shortly after Destiny 2 is taken offline for expected maintenance at 7 p.m. Pacific time on November 9th. Yeah, X-Bros and PC Bros, we have to wait till November 9th to preload. Our Sony brothers get it a little bit early. So yeah, it's basically going to be the same thing for PC. At 7 p.m. Pacific time on November 9th, that's when you'll be able to start preloading this on Steam, which will thankfully be an automatic process if you've already got the game on Steam. It is important to remember that Destiny 2 is going to see a sizable shrink when the Beyond Light preload is finished. As with the introduction of the Destiny Content Vault, a lot of things are going to be going away, and you can see the pre- and post-installation sizes here in the chart that Bungie gave us. Ultimately, I'm thankful for the additional space. My hard drive definitely needed it. But alright Guardians, that is pretty much it for the biggest bits of news contained in this week's issue of the Bungie Weekly blog, This Week at Bungie. Some neat little nuggets to tide us over until Beyond Light drops on November 10th. But alright Guardians, that's the news and those are my thoughts. Be sure to leave me yours down in the comment section below. How do you feel about this stuff? Are you finally feeling the excitement for Beyond Light? Are you ready for this thing to finally come out? I cannot wait to dive back into the Cosmodrome. Be sure to let me know how you guys feel. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest stuff we're putting out. But for now, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.